Welcome. For those of you that don't know, my father is the founder of, or one of the founders of Java City, Steve Priley. He was the responsible for the coffee roasting, coffee quality, and actually roasted all the coffee for the first couple of years of Java City. So we'll be talking with him today, going over how he got into coffee, talk a little bit about the roasting process and what you need to look for during that process, and kind of just an informal introduction. This is going to be the first episode in a series where we just generally talk about how he got into business, and then the coffee business in general, coffee quality, and how to get into roasting and how to start a business if that's what you're interested in doing. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my interview with him. We were business partners for 11 years, so we have a lot of experiences in common, but Java City was before we got into business together. So, here we go.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Okay.
uh, it's been a long time. We've been talking about doing this, but as they say, the best way to get started is just to start. It's
Yeah.
like you just got to just get going and give it a try and just start. And so that's what I've been doing. And I've been making some coffee videos with the machine and brewing, coffee with the single serve machine. And
Hmm.
this is the next logical step in that process because um, once you can extract any coffee, the next and you're getting full extraction of that coffee. The next thing where your mind goes is, well, I want to drink better coffee. So
Hmm.
why don't I can remember just briefly for anyone who might be watching this who doesn't know the background. I can remember in the when I was a kid you
Hmm.
grinding your own coffee beans, and I thought it was at the time I thought it was ridiculous because I thought, why would you ever um, grind coffee when you could just buy it already ground? And, so
Hmm.
that's a I think a lot of people that don't aren't into specialty coffee or haven't made that transition have that same thought process. How did you like when you at some point you made that transition? What was that transition for you when you first realized that there was something other than, Folgers and Maxwell House and the
Well,
coffee,
yeah.
the canned coffee?
It probably started in like 1982 when I was working in the Capitol in the governor's office, and we would take our afternoon breaks to go get coffee, and La Boulangerie had just opened around the corner, 14th and J. And the coffee was, we'd go over and have coffee there. And the coffee was really rich and thick and, just full of flavor. And we couldn't figure it out. Why is this coffee so much better? So we asked the guy behind the counter. This can be a long story. I'll try and
No,
make a long
no,
story.
no, no. You don't have to. Don't cut it up. I mean, if it's just tell it. Yeah, just
Okay. Anyway, so we asked the guy behind the counter, and he said, "Well, the owner, Trong, he was from Vietnam, and they grew coffee in Vietnam. Now, Vietnam does not have real great coffee, but Trong had always wanted to be a roaster of coffee. He had come from Vietnam through Paris, through France. So living in France, he had learned, how to drink coffee. He knew how to grow it. Anyway,
do you know
um,
how old he was when he came over? Was he
no,
an
he
adult?
wasn't too old. I mean, 1982.
Yeah,
Uh, I'd have to look it up. He seemed older. He seemed older than me, but
he probably was at the
uh,
time. So,
you know,
so he was like brewing it. Was he using like bun brewers, or I mean, what was his setup, the boulangerie, Labou's setup at that time for brewing?
think he was just using like a Bunomatic or something
Hmm.
like that.
Something
I don't
simple.
remember exactly. Uh, he might have been using a drip coffee maker. I
But
think
everything
it
was
might have
on
been.
burners back then, right? I mean, everything, coffee,
Pretty,
almost everything was on burners. Air pots hadn't even weren't even a
no, no,
thing.
no, no. It might have been like a Mr. Coffee style or something like that.
Yes.
Or
So you would walk over there and you guys would have coffee, and it hits you immediately that something is different about
well,
that
yeah,
coffee.
it was richer and thicker and just tastes better. Of course, with the croissant, it was Labou's croissants. I mean,
It was the whole
uh,
experience.
well, there's another story because Dan Rather had been to Sacramento and he had been in Vietnam and he had been in Paris. And he tried the croissants and he said it was better than the ones that he could get in Paris or that he used to get in Paris. The croissants were better than in Sacramento. It's like, wow. But anyway, so the
Wait,
coffee, so
I
the
want to
idea,
ask a question. Go back to let's go back to where uh, okay, you're drinking the coffee. Where do you make the leap to, I'm going to find out how he's doing this?
well, we asked the guy, it was member Ron Sokol, remember
Yeah,
the,
yeah, the under his breath comedian.
he would go with, we would go together. Anyway, so what makes this coffee better? Well, the whole thing was the closer you are to where it's produced or where it's roasted, it's going to be fresher. It's going to be
Yeah.
better because it's fresher. So that's the term fresh came into mind, and then it was like, yeah, it makes sense because bread's kind of you could relate it to baking bread or
Yeah.
uh, croissants or whatever. So that made a lot of sense. Well, Trong always had this idea that he wanted to bring coffee roasting to Sacramento. So he got his the guy we were talking to, his assistant, to research how to bring coffee to Sacramento. You need to buy a roaster, and how do you get the beans here, and the
Well, and
logistics.
let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, at that time, researching something like that was not an easy process at that time because there was no internet. There was, I mean, I think people that would be watching this, younger generation would think, oh, well, you just go to the internet and do a search for that. That none of that existed. So he really had to put in some effort to do that.
Yeah, and there were a couple. There was an organization, and it was the Pacific Coast Coffee Association in San Francisco, out of San Francisco. Old association. I mean, it goes back into the turn of the 19th century. Um, you know,
Mhm.
early 20s. And you could start there, and I think he did because that's where he found out where he could buy the green coffee. Because I don't think you wouldn't remember this, but when you used to cross the Bay Bridge, there was you could smell coffee as you were coming across the Bay Bridge,
Well, it was
and
Folgers. It
because
was the Folgers plant was there, right?
Folgers, yeah, Folgers was on one side, and in fact, remember they turned it into the brewery.
Oh
We went and
yeah.
had beer.
God, what was the name of it?
Yeah, good question.
Oh my God, I can't. I thought I'd never forget that. That's a great place. It's
And
gone now, right?
the beer was really good. Those guys had a
Yeah,
business plan.
Their Marzen was amazing. So anyway, I don't want to get off track. Let's get.
Yeah,
So so he went down there and he figured it all out. And then how do you make the leap? Like, how long does it take from that point to where you make the leap that you're um,
what happened was,
going to start trying to get into the business?
yeah, what Jim said, he was the guy, Jim Macy,
Mhm.
and I'm going to start this company and I'm looking for investors. Well, I had a little bit of money in the bank and I was at the end of my tenure in the governor's office the end of 82.
He
So I
lost,
said, well,
right? Is that when he lost the election?
no, he didn't run again.
Yeah.
He's been
Yeah. Okay.
years. He decided he wanted to do something else, run for
He's gonna run
something
for
else.
president, right? Wasn't that the?
He did already in 76. He ran
Okay.
for president. And then, so he ran in 82. No, yeah, 80. 76, 80. He was going to run for Senate, I think, out of California. That's when he lost. But so I got termed out with him because they were bringing in Duke Majan.
Mm-hmm.
And jokingly, I submitted my resume, and they kind of laughed at me and said thanks, but no thanks. And I knew that was going to happen. But when I walked out of there, I was, pretty happy. It was the end. I needed to do something else. Anyway, so Jim goes his direction. I gave him some money. He had a couple of investors. And then I went my direction. Lloyd and I were going to start a construction business. And I went to work for a guy named Dupnick in Loomis, building modular homes. So I don't know. One day, Jim calls me up. Oh no, we went to the Grand Oak. He had a little place on J Street, which I was a partner of. It's called River Rock Coffees.
No,
River Rock, not River Rock, American River.
American River.
The first,
American River Coffee Roasters, right? American River Coffee.
Yeah, right across from
good
the
name. Not a bad name, really.
Yeah, I had a lot of alliteration, I guess you'd call it. American River Roasters.
Yeah.
So anyway, he called me up. He was in the Army Reserves, and he had to go away for 2 weeks. And he called. I got laid off doing construction, and he called me up and said, we had already been to the opening of the little coffee shop down there and met some of the other people.
How far was that from the original Java City?
Well, it was on 37th and J, and we were on 18th and Capitol. So it was only, what is that, 9 blocks? 37 and 18, 9 blocks, yeah. 10 blocks.
Yeah.
So, he said, I need somebody, with some maturity, because he had some kids working there, to come down and keep an eye on things. And I was an investor. I was a stockholder.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't doing anything. And I said, okay. He said, we'll be here at 4:30 in the morning, and I'll show you, the process. And he had a little 4-pound roaster, an open top Civets roaster. And he said, well, here's the coffee. The first thing he did is he made me a croissant and a cup of coffee. And he said, I'll show you how this works. And I said, okay. And there's the coffee. And, there was a book, how to run the machine.
Mm-hmm.
It was only 4 months.
So it was a sample roaster. That would be called a sample roaster.
Kind of, it's messy. And he said, okay, I got to go. There's a book over there, and there's coffee over there. Put the coffee in there and turn on the machine. And then, so I had to find my way around. But the coffee beans were better quality. They were good, Arabica beans, which I learned the difference between Arabica. I didn't know what Robusto beans were. I'd never seen them.
Did you ever roast Robusta beans, or you did Arabica right from the start? You never did.
To this day, which is unbelievable. I've never roasted a Robusta bean.
Wow.
My whole life. Yeah. So anyway, I started roasting, and he was gone for 2 weeks. So I did a lot of tasting, because the main thing when you're roasting is to taste the coffee after you roast it. Then you'll know if you have the proper flavor or not. I mean, the flavor profile. You got to know where the bean is.
Yeah.
And you learn it. It's trial and error, and I'd roast 10 batches, and only maybe 2 were acceptable to what I thought good coffee should be. And he was buying the best beans. There's no doubt about that. And we were getting him from BC Ireland, who turned out to be Erna Knutson.
Mm-hmm.
Her father had owned that company or something. And then
what was her company's name? I can't remember. Knutson.
Well,
Knutson was her name, right?
Knutson. But before that, it was BC Ireland.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I got a bunch of coffee books too, if you want to, take a look at them, because I've got the Euchre's book, which tells the history of coffee, which is
it's a beautiful book too.
Yeah, it's hard to read, but it's really fascinating. So anyway, I learned about quality right away. The differences in the cups that you could produce with a 4-pound roaster. Basically, it was 4 pounds. And so that's how I developed my
How much
ability to roast.
did he have to roast on that 4 pound roaster? How many pounds was he roasting a week to keep? I
Oh,
mean, he wasn't crazy busy, right? Because it was the boom hadn't happened
no,
yet, and
no, but the word had gotten out somehow, and I was roasting and trying to hold down the fort. He was gone. He must have had, in retrospect, I'm thinking he might have. He was in Vietnam. Jim had been, and
Mhm.
I think he was he had a law degree, but he was like a captain or something. And in retrospect, in all fairness to him, I think he might have had PTSD,
Mhm.
which nobody knew what it, at the time, because he'd go away. I wouldn't see him for 3, 4 weeks sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm trying to hold on the fort, and I got kind of frustrated with that. But I learned more and more and more about roasting, and I just loved it. The main thing that I learned the first time I roast coffee was because I had had a desk job for 8 years, and I
Mhm.
wasn't getting a physical activity on the job. I'd have to do it after work. But the combination of the physical and the mental, it's 50-50. I mean, you have to use both. You
Mhm.
have to use your mind, your skills. You have to use your sense of smell, your sense of taste. You listen for the cracks of the bean, the pops. You're
Okay,
using
so
all.
so hold on. Let's go back. I want to one question. How were you brewing the coffee when you were like t tasting it?
We're
Hold on.
using a pour over, and I mean, like a Mr. Coffee style. And that's what we
Okay,
were using.
so you were just using the same old
Yeah, we know we
like
had.
traditional. You did there weren't the options weren't there. Like
Well, we had.
really.
I think we had a key mix too, which I see people even advertising on TV to this day that are not using those key mixes correctly.
Hmm.
Those pour overs. Um,
Yeah.
we can we can get into that too later about the
Well,
way.
okay, so let's jump forward here. We'll get some more into the history in the next episode. I want to go through what you're doing in this video here, and then
Oh, yeah,
we'll go from there. So I'm going to go
yeah.
ahead and start this and turn down the volume on it, and
Okay,
tell. Why don't you narrate what's happening here? Um, hold on.
okay.
Okay,
All
let me
right.
get a little bit of background noise in so you can hear the.
Yeah. Um, I can't see the beans, so I can't tell you what stage this is. And this is probably the beginning stage of the
Yeah,
roast.
here we go. I'm getting in there. Yeah, I think this is close to when it's first cracked.
Yeah, this is when I call it when it's coming up. Um, this part of the roast is as important as the finishing aspects of the roast. Um, the speed and of which the way the coffee the heat is transferred into the bean and away from the way the bean absorbs the heat in the first at the beginning, really almost like the I can 2 3 4 minutes into the roast, as important the speed at which you're going at that time, and the temperature. You don't want to bring it up too fast,
So this is
but
after the first crack here, because you can just start to. Can you see that? Or
yeah,
no?
yeah, it's not green anymore. The thing before it turns any
Just
color, that's kind of what hooked me was the smell, the aroma
Mhm.
of the coffee before it hits the first pop, the first crack. Um, it's got in this beautiful toasted cereal smell, like if you're going to toast cereal or something,
Mhm.
or grain, some kind of a grain. But anyway, it's a beautiful aroma. Just fell in love with that. And then
Mhm.
the thing, you're using your sense of smell. You're listening to the coffee, and when it hits the first crack, well, there you're using your sense of hearing, and that tells you things are going to start to happen here. So it tells you to pay attention more.
Mhm.
But And that's where we are right there. Now, what I'm doing is I'm testing. Those things are called triers, and you're trying the bean. You're looking at it and smelling it, but mostly observing the color of the bean. And is it even? The main thing is, when I did my coffee classes, it was the two C's: consistency and I forget the other C now. Consistency
Was it color? Is it color, consistency?
Oh, it was. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, complexity. Because the bean, if anyone will tell you, has been doing it. A coffee bean is so complex. I don't know. Today if they still don't know all the components of a coffee bean. Now, and that's what they said before there was DNA. So I know they're doing DNA testing on and all that now, but so complexity and consistency is important because you want to make that coffee come out, for the varietal of bean, like if it's Colombian Supremo and you have customers, that's the bean they like. They want it to be the same every time, which is incredibly difficult in coffee roasting. Or, that's why a lot of blending goes on. But so consistency and complexity. So you got to combine the two somehow. I mean, I had, customers that would only buy Kenya AA because they liked the way that, we would roast it or I would roast it. Costa Rican, John had a favorite Costa Rican. French, yeah, I don't know what your favorite was, but I mean, all the coffees.
Mine was Kenya and
Ethiopian,
Sumatra.
Yeah, Sumatra is a very dense bean. See, so you can. It's got a lot of inherent density to it, so it makes a good, nice, rich, thick cup of coffee. But like they're doing in wine too right now. There's blendings where it is.
So here we go. You're dropping. Can you see that?
Yeah. Now you got the smoke there. So this is not quite a French roast.
The full city? Would you call this a full city?
I would call it maybe a Vienna roast. Now the different stages. No one is roasting French anymore because to get to a good French, a true French, your shrinkage is going to be 20%, 20.5%. You're going to take a pretty good hit on it if you're using financially, because you're going to have to charge more for the beans because you just lost 20% of the weight. Now you buy coffee by the pound, and it takes 20% more to fill a pound of coffee, to make a pound of coffee. So, right there, you're down 20%. So that's why they went to the lighter roast, virtually under roasted coffee, like you get at Temple or something like that, barely roasted maybe just past the first pop. There's two pops, two cracks. And to get to, you can get a good, after the first crack, you can get a good medium full city. You can get a full city after the first crack. But if you want to get into Vienna roast, Italian espresso, Italian roast, or French roast, you got to go past the second crack, the second pop. And that's when the oils come out. When the oils come out, it's going to pop again.
Let's go back. Let's go back to this moment here where you're dropping it. How do you know when to drop it like that? Like hold on. Look at this last little. You're taking like a final look at it here. It's not ready there.
Yeah, you got to look at the color, and no one does it. I don't think anyone's using triers anymore. It's all computerized.
Which is crazy to me.
Go ahead.
You didn't take a final look at it there. You knew it was done, so you kind of knew.
Well, you have to factor in that the beans probably, especially if you're doing a dark roast, it's got to be up over 400 degrees. So you've got to be able to see that before. You've got to see it when it's 5 or 10 degrees less than that. So you're watching your thermostat, your thermometer, but you also know the bean. You have to know the bean. Is it a high grown beans are harder, so they take longer. They have a different kind of a shine to them, and they can take a higher heat. If you got a softer bean, which most Arabica beans aren't real soft, you have to go to maybe a Brazil or anyway. But so I knew ahead of time. I could see it coming that was going to be, maybe it could be as little as 15 seconds.
All right, so that's where we're going to stop for today. We're at 30 minutes, and at our next episode 2, we will actually go into the roasting process in more depth and really get into a complete roast and answering any questions you might have. Please put them in the comments, and we'll get to them in the episode 2.